Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Arjun Vishwanathan, and I'm the Chief Research Officer at Strategy. It gives me immense pleasure today to welcome each of you for the Digital Workspaces of the Future event that we're doing, which is sponsored by Dell and powered by Strategy. One of the key elements of what we are seeing in a global situation, struck down by a disruption that has fairly been well unprecedented. We are at the cusp or a juncture really of technology inflection and business value that is going to determine over the course of the next few months how industry really transforms itself. And if I were to be allowed to say so, transforms the very concept of work itself. In order to discuss this and many, many more aspects related to how the future of work and how digital workspaces are playing such an imperative role in each of our business journeys today, I have a very, very eminent panel with me. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce each of them, and in no specific order, please allow me to welcome Sachin Gupta, President and Chief Information, Innovation and Digitization Officer at Usha International. Sachin sir, welcome. Absolute delight to have you with us.
Thank you, Arjun. Nice to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Amit Das, Director HR and CHRO, Bennett & Coleman Company Limited, which is the parent group for the Times of India Group. Amit, absolute delight to have you here too, sir.
Thank you, Arjun. Thanks for inviting me for panel discussion.
Thank you. Bob Batchelor, Sales Director, Asia Pacific at Dell EMC, who joins us all the way from Singapore. Bob, very, very grateful you could join us. We are immensely delighted to have you with us.
Thanks, Arjun. My pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And last but certainly not the least, Prajit Nair, Director Sales, End User Computing, VMware India, a man who's in the thick of things as we speak today. Prajit, welcome. Privileged to have you here with us.
Thank you, Arjun. And pleasure actually meeting all of us and getting an opportunity to talk virtually and while
absolutely
the can go to a larger audience. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I'm going to kind of, gentlemen, jump straight into it. And if I may be allowed to kind of contextualize this, we just released about 25 minutes back a very detailed sentiment study that we'd undertaken of about 335 organizations in India, where we've spoken to very, very eminent leaders in the IT, the HR and the finance functions about their sentiments related to how digital workspaces would really be the game changer in the years to come, especially where the whole concept of the remote workforce that we call it today, or the gig economy as we know it today, is essentially a workforce that is extremely talented, but also requires and expects to be working agnostic of time and space. The recent weeks, in the last 2 months, have also equally really shown us, and if I may be allowed to say this, how unprecedented a disruption we were so unprepared for in many, many aspects, thanks to a global pandemic that hit us about a couple of months back. And we today are in the midst of an extended lockdown of another 20 odd days now, as mandated by the union government, which really brings us all together to one point, which is that business continuity has really been impacted. And I'm talking about organizational business continuity, where some key features of how do you continue to have the workforce remain as productive, as engaged, and as enthusiastic as ever before is concerned. That's number one. And on the other side of the spectrum, really, the whole concept of business metrics, which is what really drives industry, to also continue to work. Now, when you kind of bring these two together, the very concept of how we work has changed and changed dramatically. So I'm going to, Sachin, with your permission, I'm going to kind of come to you to ask you, see, we are in the midst of a fair level of unpredictability. How at Usha International, perhaps, are you steering your organization's business continuity with your employees, contractors, your partners, pretty much the entire workforce working from home? How are you kind of orchestrating this entire thing?
Thanks, sir. Thanks, Arjun, for having me here. And good morning, everyone. I think, Arjun, rather than just talking about Usha International, I think this is the phenomena that we've seen everywhere. And I think all technologists or all CIOs would agree. I'll give you an example. I have spent numerous hours in my 25 years of career in IT to get people trained in use of simple technologies such as video conferencing, right? The answer always used to be, we don't know how to do this, there's this problem, there's that problem. And I don't think I work from Fortune 10 to a small 50 people organization and nothing changes, right? This employees and users behavior stays the same regardless. So where what this unprecedented situation does, and I have to say this, I've been able to plan, do BCPs and DRs for God knows how many organizations, and situations like this you don't think about, right? You can't. It is beyond imagination, beyond planning. And in situation like this, 2 weeks ago, before March 21st, or 3 weeks ago, we were talking about importance of getting into video conferencing, start using video conferencing, and there was maybe 1% uptake. Come Monday morning, March 21st, when the first day of lockout happened, voila, we were at what, 60%, 70%. Tuesday, we were literally at 100%. Everybody doing it, zero training, nothing ever needed, no classes done. We only did issue resolution, no training, absolutely. And I always say it is not about the technology. It's not about people. It is always about a need. Is there a need to use the technology? If there is, people will use it. I don't think anybody learned or Google taught anybody to use Google Maps. There was a need. We figured it out ourselves, and we use it on a daily basis. So that's what's the difference I'm talking about. So it's all about making sure a need is met, and as long as you can create that, it happens. You talked about, Arjun, remote workspace, blurring the or working from home, or doing personal work at work, right? I don't know where those boundaries are anymore. So
True.
do you sit at work and do personal work, or do you sit at home and do work from home, right? Who knows? What it is we as technologists, we need to make sure that everybody can do whatever they need to do from wherever they are at any given point of time. Too many words, but that is the reality, right? You should be able to do whatever you want to do from anywhere. And it is our responsibility to make sure that we're able to provide the tools, technology for them to be able to do that with security and data security and privacy in perspective, right? So that's what the world we are living in, and we're going to continue to live in. What this experience is going to do is push more and more organizations to continue to have social distancing, continue to have more and more virtual meetings, continue to work in this paradigm. It is going to truly act as a paradigm shift for the organization.
So true.
And will force them to do more and more virtual work. So we can see that telecoms be happy and our data usage going up on a daily basis.
Yeah, so true that. And a very interesting point that you made there. Mr. Das, I'm going to come to you. Sachin made a very bright point about how increasingly in a disrupted industry or a disrupted world, we are now with this work from home concept and digital workspaces really blurring the lines between the physical and the digital. So these two worlds have collided to an extent where the new norm or the new reality is entirely different. Now, at the helm of one of India's largest, in fact, India's largest privately held media companies, and the media being as important as it is in today's day and age, how have you planned, strategized, and pretty much architected this entire operating model, sir?
Sure, Arjun. So first of all, good morning, all of you. And at the outset, let me wish each one of you who's watching this panel discussion and each one of your family members the best of safety and health at these trying times. These are not very normal times for us. These are unprecedented times, and any such uncommon times require uncommon wisdom. So I think as business professionals, we have been talking about this VUCA business environment being the new normal for quite some time now. But what we are seeing today is not only unprecedented, I think it's none of us have ever wondered or even thought of that we'll be getting into a situation where a lot of things which we have invested in the organization in terms of building capabilities and preparing the organization for this kind of a disruption will go wrong. For example, an organization of our vintage, the Times Group, we are 185-year-old organization, and we take pride in talking about the fact that we are 185-year-old startup. And the fact that we take pride in saying that is because we not only have a rich legacy of processes, culture, wisdom, but also we have the very high level of innovativeness. At the same time, as an organization, we are extremely agile to make changes much before, much ahead of times, which has helped us not only to sustain the print industry in India beyond anybody could think of. Because if you look at the various researchers, they've took inputs from what happened in the rest of the part of the globe of the print industry getting declining, and they thought that in India also we'll be following a similar curve. But thanks to our innovativeness and the way we have pulled the innovation levers much ahead of times, that helped us not only to sustain our organization, but to sustain the entire media sector as a whole. So what I'm trying to say is, even an organization which is such a high degree of innovativeness and the kind of agility that we have demonstrated over a period of time, while we have actually pressed the business continuity process button, even before the first case of coronavirus or COVID-19 infection was reported in India, we started sending the advisories, we started ensuring the business contingency plans, we started taking various preventive measures. While we had ensured the operational continuity, and we ensured that immediately 50% of the employees start working away from office, either remotely or from their home. But what hit us badly, or what came as a jolt to us, is when we found that suddenly this social media started talking about this fake myth of newspapers being carrier of coronavirus.
Oh.
That came as a jolt to us. And you must have seen a lot of brand campaigns that we immediately pressed on, starting to actually drive away this psychological barrier in the mind of people saying that newspaper is safe. And that has been reinforced and endorsed by a lot of public figures, a lot of politicians, ministers, and the PM's office himself, okay? And the celebrities also talking about holding the newspaper and saying, I'm reading the newspaper, it is safe. But the other thing that we have to keep in mind in a sector like this is, and it has come directly from the Honorable Prime Minister, saying that newspaper is the most authentic source of information. And especially in trying times like this, you must not depend on this social media messaging and the various information that keeps floating around, because you don't know to the degree of authenticity of this news that you are consuming throughout the day.
So true.
So you have to actually depend on newspaper, and that gives us an onerous responsibility as an organization.
So indeed true.
That we reach our product to the doorstep of the reader every day in the morning at predefined time before 6:30 every day morning, day in, day out.
I'm just going to hold your thought there, sir. Bob, with your permission, if I were to be allowed to come to you, you heard two very eminent gentlemen speak and elucidate really very diverse points from the spectrum. The first is that there's no glossing over the fact that there has been disruption, that it is credible and it is present today. Secondly is the whole question of how citizens, people, workers, employees, contractors, partners tend to react when caught in a situation that they haven't been exposed to before. Now, my whole concept is if you were to kind of bring these two together, how do you, in your space, in the kind of matters and the technology advancements that you helm, how do you see the whole concept of digital workspaces evolving? And where do you find technology meeting business value, relevance, authenticity?
Okay, so let me take that piece by piece, Arjun.
Sure.
First of all, it's quite interesting to hear the comments from Sachin and Amit. Let's just break it up individually. So when you speak about evolving workspace, so I've been a remote worker for some time. So from me, it's quite usual to work from home for any period of time. But one thing I have even myself I've learned is this whole concept of video conferencing. Now, Sachin mentioned about how people were objecting to it. And I had the same thing from the initial start on no one to go on video to now everyone's choosing a different background and it's more of a social thing. So that's already evolved in just a matter of a few days. So I can see your point there. And what's happened is people have grasped the technology and instead of being afraid of it, have started to embrace it. And Amit was saying about the deluge of information coming out there in social media. So before I talk about the technology, I just want to talk a little bit about, with my own staff, is making sure that we have the right focus when we're working from home. So it's a lot of contact, a lot of communication. We have IM, we can see presence, we can see who's there, who's available, know when you can contact them, when you can ping them. We use various other apps to keep in communication. And that way nobody feels alone. So that's the first thing I wanted to highlight is that in this situation, unprecedented situation, contact with individuals is really important. Now, if we go back to the whole remote working side of things and this evolution of the workspace, one of the things we did at Dell Technologies is really try to give the digital workspace to particularly the millennial or the younger generation, because they wanted to be able to access their tools and applications from anywhere on any device at any time, and being able to do that actually increases the opportunity to attract talent. So I won't steal any thunder from Project. So he'll talk about how VMware have helped us do that. So we certainly look at the unified workspace to allow people to have that digital workspace. But more importantly, it doesn't mean the company has to sacrifice security, and the IT administrators do not have to relinquish management or control of those devices. So that's the first most important thing. I won't go into detail how that's done because I'm sure Project will talk about that.
Roger,
what I will say,
yeah, so.
Yeah, but what I will say is that what it does, it allows us to do is have the ability for workers to be at home. And one of the things we're really very conscious of is making sure they've got the right working environment, something that's conducive to them to be able to be productive. And that's what this is really about, making sure that our staff remain productive for the benefit of the organization. So making sure they have the right environment, making sure they have the right tools, the right equipment, also making sure they look after themselves as well. Have to be very disciplined. You've got to be very disciplined. You start and stop. And when I first started working from home, I would start early in the morning and finish late at night. And you can end up having some burnout. So again, at this time, it's very important for your staff who have not been used to working from home to be disciplined. You know, have breaks. Even if you're going to have a conference call, instead of making a business one, think about when you're in the coffee room. You know, invite a few friends, get on a call, talk about work, talk about various things, what you did the weekend, what are you doing to stay busy when you're not working, you know, those sort of things. So that's just a sanity check. But the real value of what we can do is we can deliver that on any device consistently. Providing the network is good, And that's, again, one other challenge. I'm based here in Singapore, and the amount of people on the network, I'm glad this is a little later in the day, because ordinarily first thing in the morning is very, very busy and the network can become congested. So we're going to see, and I think Sachin mentioned this, the communication companies are going to have to ramp up the 5G network probably quicker than.
True.
Yeah, so in terms of how it's evolving, I touched more on the soft aspects of how it's evolving, how people are getting used to working remotely. But in terms of the technology, Dell Technologies has a plethora of solutions that allow any type of worker, and about 50% of workforce can work from home, any type of that, whether it be an engineer, a developer, management, database analysts, you know, all these sort of things, they can work from home as productively as they could from the office.
Brilliant. Prajit, I want to come to you. Bob made a very beautiful point there. He said it's as much about the technology as it is about making sure that people, wherever they are, employees, wherever they are, continue to feel useful, productive, and enthusiastic about it. And now the man at the center of architecting and orchestrating this, how have you and if I were to break an era, a very short era into two spaces, which is pre-disruption and now in disruption, and we'll obviously come to a post-disruption space, how have you seen that evolving?
Okay, thanks, Arjun. And it was great to see the insight from all diverse dignitaries here. Sachin giving an example from this organization and his experience, and how Hamid gave an example from a people perspective and how they had to face the challenges and how they were trying to grapple with it, and how Bob set the context basically about delivering, literally anything on any device at any point of time with a consistent experience. So when we look into it and we see all of this coming, we are getting customers across the domain, be it the banking sector, be it the technology sector, be it the manufacturing sector. All these sectors probably have some of the other reasons, and everybody is grappling with it. Now, fundamentally, I do agree with Sachin when he said that the technologies and these options were there before as well. But there were always resistances when this was being given to people to do it. And most of the time, it remained more an IT initiative. IT is trying to do a lot of these things. We will see when things come back. We will think about it. We will.
To me, I'm responsible for that kinds too.
Okay. so it was all about the solutions always existed, but with this kind of an unprecedented situation that we all are in, literally this has become a norm. And what people thought was never possible is today absolutely being possible, and people are going with it absolutely, and within a matter of days. I mean, we are not even talking months that I will take time to scale up to a month or 2 months and then try to do it. Literally by the second or third day, we are working within the constraints that we are forced to work, and it's working fine. Now, it may not be the optimal use case, and organizations are now trying to see what can be optimized and what can be provisioned and what can be given to the organization, so that on one side, they are getting the access they need to the corporate data and applications on any device. And at the second time, they also want to ensure that the security is also in place, because you mentioned earlier that it's now become a borderless corporate environment, because the borders are no longer assigned along just with the entity. It's spread to homes, everybody, and everybody is working in a borderless structure. How do you really build a structure within a borderless structure is also the game that the IT needs to plan and deliver this as a solution. So when we look at these kind of incidences, we are flooded with multiple options. On one side, we have customers coming to us that please enable us at least a compute facility, which means give me an option to work on a virtual desktop, which can be provisioned over a cloud, and I could immediately start using with it. There are few set of customers who are already using virtual desktops, and they come to us if they have excess capacity with them that I have provisioned only for, let's say, X amount of users, but now situation demands that I expand it to X plus 50% or X plus 30%. Can you help us really provision that? Now we have customers, some of the customers who are already users of this one, who say that, you know what, I have already made this possible, but this was working only in the corporate zone. Now I want to open it up and make this facility use from home. So can you literally work with us to make it happen? And the time given to us was just a weekend. I mean, that was the pressure on us, and people were not even willing to wait for the next Monday to come, because that was the kind of pressure. We have known the last 2 or 3 weekends that the team has been on the ground really going hard, trying to provision this and make it happen over a weekend so that on Monday, when employees start accessing it, they are able to work on it. So this is one set of users that we see. On the second side, we have also seen very rudimentary Indian type of jugaad coming into the space, where organizations have actually shipped physical PCs to employees' home. You will find a lot of organizations who actually shipped their corporate PCs, unplugged it from the offices and have sent it to employees' home, so that they get to work on the structured or a controlled environment of endpoint that's available. And we have also seen some sort of an adoption where people say, okay, I can't really ship the hardware. We are kind of stuck. I want to make it possible from the employees' devices or the employees' endpoint, whatever devices they have in home. Can you enable access for those devices from the ones that they're available at home? Can you make them possible that they should be able to access all my corporate applications seamlessly? And what could be the security measures around? So we saw all of these kind of different responses, different organizations came to us. There are organizations who actually went ahead and bought rental devices. They said that, okay, I don't know how long this will last, but I think this is a short-term one. Now, we don't know how short-term is short-term. Now, whether this will be a 2-month thing, 3-month thing, I mean, it's a guesswork that everybody is doing. But people who wanted to get things right, all these sort of options available. And what VMware could do was, because we had the technology which used to enable this to happen, we were working on a war footing in all these areas, whether it involved creation of desktop for them to be operating through on-prem, or whether it involved creating through the cloud and offering it, or whether it involved enabling their Windows 10 laptops that they were having at home and how we could enable them to do it, or even enabling simple things like accessing the corporate PCs from their home PCs. So there are a lot of situations in organizations where there are some set of users who only are the PC users. They don't carry the PC home. They don't need to work around the clock. They are expected to work only for the certain time. Now, for those set of users, all they want to access is that, please give me a solution whereby I can connect from my home PC to my corporate PC and my job will be done. So the VPN kind of solution doesn't scale up so far. The bandwidth has not been curtailed well, and the home PCs are not configured well. So even if you put a VPN on a home PC, literally you're expanding your corporate environment to a home PC which is unconfigured properly, and you can run to situations there. And so people are saying that a secure way to the home PC to the corporate PC, and we have solutions which could do that. So we literally address all these kind of gaps, and we're still doing so as we speak. Various organizations are trying a lot of these solutions and trying to see what best can be done as a more consistent solution moving forward.
Thanks, Prajit. Very, very relevant points there. Mr. Das, if I may be allowed to come to you really. The whole concept of what we're hearing is the blurring of the lines between the physical and the digital, which is what Prajit was also speaking about. Now, these are sure to bring out very significant cultural changes in the way that employees approach work in a post disruption space, as well as how organizations will approach the whole concept of work productivity and business metrics with their employees. Now, as a chief people officer at BCCL, what are your views? How do you see that happening, and what's your strategy on that?
Sure. So if you think about it, the digitization of workplace is nothing new. It's been happening for many years now. If you see most of the global organizations, they have their global diverse workforce virtually connected from any parts of the geographies, and they are managing the world organization for a long time. But what this kind of event that we are going through will help us do is to accelerate the change in the mindset. And that's the biggest barrier. All of us know that any change management is a humongous task for any of the organizational leadership to manage, while we have the right tool set as well as the right skill set. But the mindset is something which needs humongous amount of planning, humongous amount of collaborativeness, and humongous amount of leadership, I would say, bandwidth to make that change happen. So I think it's more about changing the digital mindset creating more of digital dexterity and digital savviness in the organization, which is important, than
Very well said.
digital workplace. I think that's the shift that will be going through. Now, having said that, it was very interesting for me to see certain research reports which are saying that the virtual teams are 25% less productive than the teams which are physically connected in a brick and mortar environment. Number one.
Very interesting.
Number two, we're talking about employees willing to take 8 to 10% of a cut in their earnings, provided they are given an opportunity to work from anywhere. It's not work from home, but work from anywhere. But what people thought was as a welcome change for them to get this opportunity to work from home actually has worked out differently. The feedbacks that we are getting from our employees, and I'm talking to other CHROs as well, is that employees are started seeing signs of fatigue due to long hour calls where they are getting into these unstructured meetings, which is going on, which is starting quite early, going on till late evenings, and especially at a time when they are also supposed to take part and contribute a lot in their household chores. So I think this is a big change that's happening in the workplace and the way people are connected through a virtual medium. So what we need to do is to invest in building capability to manage virtual meetings. What Bob was trying to say is how we can make employees more disciplined and put a guideline in the way we manage this kind of virtual meetings and interactions. That's number one. Number two is that any kind of virtual interaction has certain downsides as well. When I wear the hat of a HR leader, I cannot, just move away from the fact that our human brain secretes certain hormone called oxytocin, which is primarily a social hormone. And that happens when we are in a social gathering, where we are in an office, physical office space, and to the various interactions that we have with our fellow colleagues. Now, our human brain, the way it has evolved over a period of time, it is yet to function in a manner where it can start secreting that oxytocin in a virtual environment. And when the social interactions are happening over a virtual screen. I think that is something what we need to look at, and how quickly we can make that changes and help employees and our colleagues to make that change in their own mind is more important than digitizing the workplace. The technology is either automating the work that you are doing, or it transforms the way you work. In most of the cases, what we are trying to do is automating the workplace. But the transformation will lie in the last mile barrier of transformation of the mindset. I think that is where is the biggest.
Can I chip in there, Mr. Das? Just coming to you. See, at the beginning of this conversation, and it's very, very interesting that you just mentioned this. At the beginning of this conversation, you said yours is a 185-year-old organization and extremely well respected, and therefore, do you find it easy to address the barriers and the challenges of cultural shifts that will indeed come up, and therefore are you prepared with this clear strategy on how you will address it?
Yes. So if you have to look back, there are three things primarily which has helped us, which we have demonstrated and we are consciously demonstrating as leadership in the organization when it comes to the larger organization. Number one is safety. The safety is of paramount importance. And that's the biggest leveler at this time of crisis. We have made safety as a prime important factor for us in the organization when it comes to safety of our employees and safety of all our stakeholders, be it our consumers, be it our customers, be it our distribution boys who are going and delivering your newspaper product to the last mile doorstep for the readers. Okay, so first is a safety. Second is a trust. If we have a trust deficit in the system, no matter whatever technology that you deploy, that will fail you again and again. So I think that that's a second element which has helped us if you have to reflect back. The third element is a transparency. The transparency at which we have co-created and recreated our process while running on the treadmill is something which has helped us in this time of crisis, which is quite unprecedented, despite the fact, as I said, that as an organization, we are extremely agile and innovative.
Wow, that was, I think, extremely well put. And I'm just going to pick up on threads of that. And really, Sachin, if I may come to you, is what Mr. Das is saying is that there are a new set of realities that have been established, the new norm in the cliched manner of speaking, and please forgive me for that. But how, in your opinion, are you going to now, going forward, over the weeks, months, and perhaps the years, leverage the power of technology to augment the workforce and the workspace so that you're able to create orders of magnitude improvements in productivity and innovation, really?
Fair point, Arjun. I think before I answer the question, I think we need to, uh, I think we're mixing two things here. We're mixing working from home or working in a digital space and lockdown and putting it together in one sentence, right? And you really have to break it apart.
True.
Right? Amit mentioned a point on social behavior of human beings, right? And Bob mentioned one thing. He said that we have to be very regimented about when you work from home in terms of you're having social calls versus you're having certain work schedule. You have to be very regimented about that. And I used to, so work from home used to be a privilege, right? If you go back 10 years, it used to be, look,
True.
I want to catch up on few things. I want to be away from work. Let me
It
work
was
from
quite
home.
looked down upon, if that may be.
Absolutely, right? Work from home used to be thought about something that you would do, not really working, but you want to run errands and you want some time off. So you would say, I want to work from home and maybe spend a couple of hours. It changed over a period of years, right? And it changed for good, where the lines got blurred. Working from home really was working, right?
Yeah.
We're working from anywhere, and I alluded to that fact, and don't want to dwell into too much. But we truly need to segregate right now lockdown versus work from home. I think lockdown will go away eventually.
True.
And we need to then focus on our working from home capability, being able to, or working away from physical workspace reality. And the comment that Amit made was very interesting, and I'm going to have an offline conversation with him on how people, when they work out of office, are 25% less productive. Because I've been working harder than that, and we have this conversation about leadership in the leadership team that we're burning out because we're on the calls from morning to evening and then going and washing dishes after the fact, right? So, but
So, Sachin,
go ahead. Yeah, Amit, go ahead.
small clarification in that while the productivity is getting dropped, but people are finding themselves more fatigued.
Oh,
Very,
absolutely.
very counterintuitive.
Yeah. And I can give you my example that I'm feeling tired, and a lot of days I feel worn out because we're on the calls, and you're not being able to step out. And that's why I said you need to segregate work from home and lockdown. But right now we're in that space confined together because of that, right? I can't even step out of my building, forget about society or anything. So it's a different world right now, and we need to segregate that. So if we talk about work from anywhere, and I'm not going to say work from home, right? Ability to provide resources to people so that they can work from anywhere, anytime, right? And if I was in Microsoft, I'd say anywhere, anytime on any device, but those days are long gone. So let's just stick with anytime, anywhere. Um, in 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 that space, in that paradigm, I don't think an responsibility of an IT head or a CIO is really changed, right? I still need to look at new technologies. I still need to look at business opportunities. I still need to look at digitization, new ways of doing business. I still need to be able to look at opportunities and see and only focus on opportunities that will help me increase revenue, decrease cost. I still need to look at providing dashboard, meaningful information to the leaders so that they are able to make point in time decisions. So you that really doesn't change, Arjun. What changes is the paradigm of the space, right? Is an employee sitting here or is an employee sitting somewhere else? It should not matter. If you go back 3-4 years ago, we used to spend a lot of money in doing telepresence, right?
Yeah, true that.
We were doing it because we wanted that experience that the person sitting now. With the technologies today, you really don't need that. So not much is changing, right? What I'm trying to say is not much has changed over years. One thing that has changed is the video conferencing, because of the situation we are in, has become a need rather than a want or a desire, right? And now this incident is going to only help people realize that they can be as productive as they want to be when they're not physically in the office. So we should see travel bills come down and so on and so forth, right? As far as my responsibility as a CIO, it's not changing. Hasn't changed, and I don't see it changing. I still would have to provide the tools so people are productive at any given time, can work from anywhere, and have up-to-date information to be able to make the right and meaningful decisions at any given time from anywhere, right? Which is all about digitization, thinking about new business models. So that's my perspective.
Lovely. Bob, I'm going to come to you on that one. Very, very clear views. So there's clear business metrics. There's the clear concept that we need to delineate the whole concept of what we are going through today, or the lockdown as it is called, from the digital workspace of the future, really. Now, in a digital workspace of the future, Bob, at Dell, what are the kind of emerging technologies such as automation or perhaps AI or robotics, really, security or next-gen security, are you really integrating into your solutions to be able to not just ensure that this work that continues as usual or BAU, really, but also the experience, notwithstanding the fact that employees continue to feel enthusiastic, energetic, and wanting to. How do you bring that about? What's the magic there?
It's a good point, Arjan. And one of the things, as already mentioned, I think by Sachin and Amit, was the ability for employees to work on any device from anywhere or anytime, anywhere. Now, the reality is you can't do that without some mechanism to be able to deliver an application. So kind of an application delivery tool, which is 100% secure and also accessible on any type of device. So that's one of the things that we're doing with VMware in their Workspace ONE solution. So that takes care of the security aspect and also the connectivity. As soon as they click on the application, then all of the SSL and authentication will all be taken care of. It'll also make sure that if someone's using a jailbroken device or has a blacklisted application, that it'll also be locked out. So all of that's taken care of. So once we make sure that the environment is safe and the employee can access all the applications and tools they need to do their job and ensure their productivity, we need to think about how we make sure that they enjoy what they're doing, they remain relevant. And one of the things we've been doing quite a lot here at Dell is investing in AI or augmenting reality, particularly around training. So it doesn't actually matter where you are, whether you're in an office environment or a classroom environment or at home. You can actually immerse yourself into a training environment. And this has been taken to some extremes. South African Army, in fact, they're using the augmented reality for their new recruits. And what they found is a 20% increase in their first live firing exercise because they've had the experience of going out and firing a weapon at targets, understanding what they're going to be exposed to, and that's given that increase. Another extreme to that is children going in for an MRI. It's quite daunting. If anyone's ever had an MRI, it's quite a overwhelming experience. You're in a small confined space with very loud noises. It's quite warm and stuffy. We can actually have the children go through that environment, go through that process in a safe environment. They know what to expect, which means they're less likely to move during the MRI. It's less wasted time and also less inconvenience for them. So there's some benefits that we're finding with augmented reality. Internally, we're finding it for training. even to the point of new products. So I don't have to get a physical product anymore. I can send my colleagues a file, and all they need to do is look through their smart device, and they can actually see the whole product, turn it around, take it apart. So that's how we're using AI to improve what we do here at Dell. And of course, once we've made that and perfected that, that's when we start offering it to our customers and partners.
Outstanding. Project, I'm going to come to you, and I do have a view on the clock, but I am going to come to you on two aspects, really. One is I'd like you to bring out an extension to what Bob just mentioned in terms of the embedding and the integration of a lot of automation and AI in developing solutions that are going to meet fairly customized and personalized needs of organizations such as Usha, BCCL, and so on. But I will first pick you on that one. Why don't you? And then I'll, of course, come to the second part of it.
So if you look at it, I think Bob made a very relevant point here of enabling, literally at the end of the day, there needs to be a mechanism which delivers consistent experience to users irrespective where they are working. Now, if you look at it, prima facie, it's going to be an experience-led economy. We all agree that anything that we are buying today or the way that we touch or feel or decide or choose a particular thing is based on the experience. And that's why we call it an experience-led economy. The same thing comes even for the device through which you connect your corporate. Now, it can be a smart device, it can be a laptop, it can be PC, or it can be any sort of devices. So it is in situations like this that you find VMware and Dell, working together to deliver consistent experience to the users across wherever they work, whether they're working at home, whether they're working on PCs, whether they're working on their smartphones. We could deliver the same experience, the consistent experience on any device. So in that sense, what we are delivering is changing the gamut from the IT and the other organizations who used to typically work in silos in the organizations, where IT used to be working only on desktops as one setup, another set of IT used to work on mobile, the other set used to work on security. So over the years, we have built up silos in organizations which was focused on certain set of activities that they used to do in the organizations. Now with this kind of an economy, and where people are talking about an experience-led economy, and we're talking about digital workspaces and should be relevant to work from anywhere on any device. Literally, you can't work with this siloed approach. You typically need a platform-based approach, which actually removes or make this layer very transparent, which takes care of the needs for the desktop team, the security team, the HR team, the application onboarding team, all together to deliver consistent experience to all the users, irrespective where they are in the office or whether they are at home. And that's some of the initiatives that we work with Dell and Workspace ONE together. In fact, just to give you a simple thing that let us look at a scenario of how a basic laptop used to be provisioned in an environment. Typically, the IT team used to have an imaging team, which was a corporate image they typically to put. And by the time an employee joins an organization, at least a week is gone just before he gets the access to his new device. He goes to various departments trying to get access to the different applications because he needs approval from those specific departments to get into it. And it takes easily between 3-4 days, maybe a week time before the employee actually becomes productive in doing this work. Now, what we have co-engineered and delivered the solution is we have spoken to customers and got the image that he wants and given it to Dell so that they can literally factory provision this entire setup through Workspace ONE and ship this device to the new joiners who is going to join the organization. And even before he joining the organization on the first day, depending on the department that he's joined in, depending on the applications that is relevant to him, when he clicks open, the same way how we are treated to an experience on our mobile phone, that if you buy a new mobile phone, all you do is just put your email ID and you do next, right? And it literally is, and you can pick and choose the application that you want, download it on your own. There is no IT help desk. Everything gets done to you and you're on your own. That's the kind of experience we are delivering it to all the users when they're getting this factory provision laptop shipped from Dell directly to them, so that on day one, when they're joining the organization, depending on the department and how it is, all they need to do is key in their email ID and the applications literally flows them. He doesn't really need to chase different departments, but literally the applications chase him and gives him a choice that, okay, this is the organization. okay, this is the application catalog. Relevant to me, what are the applications? I just click on it and I get it on my desktop. As simple as that. So literally we are streamlining the IT help desk process, the experience consistency across different, and we're giving choice that you can really pick on any device of your choice and we will deliver the same level of consistent experience to you. And these are the different perspectives that we are trying to help customers, meet the challenges they're facing currently.
Quite brilliant, really. Thank you. But I do have a view on the clock. So, gentlemen, I'm just going to make this slightly interesting as we kind of bring this very, very exciting set of discussions to a close. Prajit, I'm going to come to you. 30 seconds. Your top prediction, or maybe top 2 predictions for what the future of the workspace is going to look like in between 5 and 10 years.
So fundamentally, what we believe is that this event will change workspace forever. I don't think this will now be a situation whereby people will think that this is a 3-month thing and let me get back to my old days. People will definitely now have PCP plans. They will definitely think about work from home or work from anywhere. And most importantly, we are seeing a rapid change in the way organizations will look at the offices itself. Do they really need offices for all the employees? Or can they really categorize what are the set of employees who needs to be in office? What are the set of people who can work from anywhere? And possibly look at, increased revenue at a decreased cost in this kind of landscape. That's what we.
Lovely. Bob, what's the future of the workspace or the digital workspace of 2030 going to look like, or 2028, if that brings it closer to you?
Okay, well, just to follow on from what Rajit was saying there, one of the benefits I think is going to happen from moving on from here is the ability for them to utilize that commuting time. So that's going to give them extra productivity. Also, speaking to some of my staff in the fact that they are less stressed about having to worry about who's picking up the kids or where they are. So that's another absolute benefit that I think people are going to find. But we are social creatures and we must have contact. I work from home, but I have to go to the office just to see people. And you get roped into conversations, you have coffees, you go for lunches. But what I believe, and I've already started seeing this happening, is that we'll start seeing collaboration spaces. I've even been working with some education facilities where the schools no longer have a classroom. They have an environment with round desks, people will sit in any available chair. The lecturer or the teacher will speak to them and flick up onto a screen somewhere in the room from their device what it is that the content they're going to speak to them about today. And I believe that's what we'll see in the next 5-10 years. We'll all work from home or from anywhere, but we will have collaboration spaces where we can still go and congregate and be social creatures. And I'm a very tactile person, as I know you are in India. You want to have that physical contact with people. So I don't think that will completely change.
Thank you. Sachin, if I may come to you, and I'm just going to add one layer to it. And what do you think the reimagined workspace or the digital workspace of the future is going to do for innovation?
Wow. I wasn't expecting that question. That was a curveball. Thanks, Arjun. I think to put a focus on innovation, I think new technologies such as AR that Prajit talked about, how can you aid learning and development using AR or virtual reality for that matter? And there's a lot of work, a lot of organizations are doing with that. Not only it decreases cost, but also gives you a lot of look and feel. Think about a product company that would have to take hundreds of products and give it to people to be able to get trained on that. You don't need to do that anymore, right? So you see a lot of that to come into play. You will see a lot of security come into play, because as you get connected and you start working from outside, we were only worried about how do we. So the difference was we used to only look at securing the corporate network, and you've secured the corporate network, nothing else outside matters, right? Now it's not only internal, it's external matters too, and now you're extending your network to people's homes and Starbucks of the world, and being able to do that. And on top of that, now you put privacy, right, where you have your consumers' information, not all that information. So security, all of that's going to play a vital role. I think it's going to be all about providing information that people need in a secured manner, so they're confident that they can work and the information that they're passing back and forth or collaborating on is secured, right? So that's would be my opinion.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Das, last but not the least, for sure, 30 seconds. What do you predict for the future of work and the future of the workforce?
I have a slightly different take on this. I don't look at workplace in an isolated manner. What I look at is WWW.
Oh, yes.
Workplace and workforce. All three have to evolve and transform together simultaneously and work in tandem to make this transformation happen. And that's how I foresee the future to get unfolded. Having said that, specifically on the workplace, I would say that it will become my space, where I can have connectivity, access 24/7, and I can just plug and play from anywhere. So in a way, what I'm sensing is that we are gradually moving into a situation where it will be complete Uberization of the workplace, where we'll have an app, and through the app, we know exactly the nearest point from my home where I can just walk in, plug in, and start playing.
Lovely.
That's how I imagine the future going.
I couldn't have said it better myself. But I think that pretty much is what we have time for, gentlemen. Do let me, on behalf of the audience also, thank you. It has been an absolute privilege to have been in the midst of such an august audience. We stand the better for having heard your experiences, views, and opinions on really the way to the future. And I think if I were to summarize it, I would say that the technology is here. The situation has been more or less mandated one way or the other, naturally or unnaturally. And that we have, whether we like it or not, entered tomorrow. But at that, I am going to take a stop there. Thank you very, very much, Prajit, Bob, for joining us from Singapore, Sachin, Ms. Das. Absolute delight to have you here with us, sir. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure catching you.